One Piece chapter 1010 came with some of the biggest reveals when it comes to Conqueror's Haki, with Oda introducing a new form that can be applied to combat, and so now the common consensus is that this is Advanced Conqueror's Haki, which I don't believe to be the case because of several different elements. And again, if you want to know my thoughts on this matter at hand, you can check out my previous video and I give reasons as to why this is most likely the mid-level of Conquerors and not the advanced, or at least the highest level of Conquerors. I think the advanced level is going to be somewhat different and very individual to the user. And when I say individual, I am referring to this form of King's Haki to be unique to the user. Therefore, we are not going to see someone have the same ability as the next person, because for the most part, Haki has been very linear in terms of its abilities. Everyone sort of has the same thing. Obviously, you do have a few exceptions here and there, characters who were born with a very advanced form of Haki like Madame Shirley, but this is extremely rare. But with Advanced Conquerors, I think individuals who attain this level will have an ability that is unique to them alone. So essentially, whatever Shanks has at his highest will be different from what Luffy has at his highest. And the reason that I think this way is because not all kings are the same. Doflamingo is a different king than Luffy, therefore what his will embodies will be different. I think this form of Haki would definitely be a huge change to the scheme of Haki we've seen throughout the course of the story. Let's just say it's going to be a lot different. But before we get into this video, I would appreciate it if you dropped a like on this video and subscribe if you're new here. Now let's talk about Whitebeard and Roger first and foremost, and how some of my suspicion came to be in terms of Conqueror's Haki having another level than what we're currently seeing in the story. So with Whitebeard and Roger, from what we know so far in the story, these two individuals are stated to be on par, meaning equal in combat ability. Now some people do have Roger over Whitebeard and others have Whitebeard over Roger, but it doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things because it's going to be an extreme difficult fight either way. But with these two individuals being stated to be on par, something struck me as very odd, and that was the abilities that they have at their disposal. So let's examine Whitebeard here. Whitebeard has a Devil Fruit, and not just any ordinary Devil Fruit, he has what has been stated to be the strongest Devil Fruit within the Paramecia class. In terms of armament Haki, he seems to have Rio, possibly the internal destruction based on his clash with Roger, so he has top tier ornaments as well. And his observation so far seems to be pretty top tier based on Marco's words in Marineford, saying that it doesn't matter if his allies attacked him, he would have noticed and saw the attack coming. And then we have Conquerors, which seems to be again on the same level as that of Roger's, based on the clash that we saw. So when it comes to Whitebeard, he seems to be all-rounded in all forms of combat, both in terms of Devil Fruit and Haki. Now we come to Roger, and again this is going off based of what has been shown in the story. Roger, from what it seems like, has top tier observation. Most likely, this is speculation, but it's very likely that Roger has top tier observation and also top tier ornament, just like Whitebeard, and also top tier in Conquerors as well. Again, going off of the clash that we saw. And I wouldn't doubt Roger having top tier in everything because he's a non-Devil Fruit user. I feel like non-Devil Fruit users have more time to refine their Haki because they don't have a Devil Fruit ability to work on. And again, I'm looking at this in the sense of if the Conquerors that we're seeing in the current story is the most advanced, the coding of Conquerors, right? Now, something very interesting happens when you pit these two individuals together in terms of stats, right? And that is that Whitebeard seems to have everything Roger has, but with a top tier Devil Fruit ability. But for some reason, these guys are equal. So this raises a huge suspicion for me that there is more that hasn't been fully talked about with individuals like Roger and other top tier non-Devil Fruit users like individuals like Shanks and Garp. These two characters always come to mind, and I think it's in relation to Conqueror's Haki. I think Roger was one of the few individuals to have this Pinnacle of Conquerors, and in some sense it is how he was able to compete with Whitebeard's Devil Fruit. I feel like non-Devil Fruit users who are top tiers are very interesting because it seems like they're going up against people who not only possess Haki themselves but also have extremely powerful Devil Fruit abilities. If you look at things from a face value kind of perspective, Whitebeard should be outright stronger than Roger, but that's not the case. So the question really comes down to how is this possible? And that's what we're going to be diving into today. So what exactly is true Advanced Conquerors? Well, everything pretty much starts with Rayleigh. And here he essentially gives us the definition of Conqueror's Haki, and there's a specific line that is very, very interesting and sort of is the foundation of this theory. Now this is what Rayleigh says about King's Haki. It is the embodiment of the spirit of the user, or some other translations also say it's the user's very spirit manifest. So King's Haki in its truest form is the embodiment of Luffy's will, something that represents Luffy's spirit, and in a way it is mentioned as if it is something entirely different from Luffy himself, a manifestation of Luffy's spirit. Now the first time I heard this, the first thing that I thought about was stands from JoJo. Now, if you guys don't know what stands are, a stand essentially represents the manifestation of an individual's innate fighting spirit and embodies to an extent the individual's psyche. So in a sense, sort of like a separate presence that is born from the user. And this sort of ties to something very interesting that happened to Luffy in Wano, and that is the unconscious Haki. Luffy has showcased the ability to use Conquerors whilst being unconscious, which is crazy because it's almost like Luffy's will is acting on its own. And it even went further, in which after Kaido defeated Luffy, even though unconscious, was able to resonate his will to Momo and Law's crew, telling them that he was gonna beat Kaido. It's almost like Luffy's spirit has taken a form of its own and is acting almost independently from Luffy. And interestingly enough, we have seen something like this in the series, whereas a specific individual has manifested a being with his sheer will, and yes, that individual is Zoro. Ashura has been stated to be a demon god that manifested through Zoro's will. And if you remember how it was mentioned that Conquerors embodies the user's spirit, Ashura is a demon god from Buddhism, which has intense liking for combat, carnage, violence, and suffering. And Zoro, ever since the beginning of the story, his whole ambition is to become the strongest, and he chooses to reach that goal by following the path of Ashura. Zoro has shown these traits throughout the course of the story. He likes fighting, he trains a lot, has suffered and endured all sorts of extreme punishments or predicaments, and has a desire to be superior to others. This is everything that embodies who Zoro is, and that embodiment has taken form to create his manifest, Ashura, a god created from his desire and spirit. So essentially what I'm saying here is that Ashura is the pinnacle of conquerors. It is your will and everything that embodies your spirit manifesting into a physical form. And I've always found it weird that when Zoro awakened Conquerors, we didn't get to see that black lightning that is always portrayed when using Conqueror's coding, right? Zoro so far didn't have any of that. And I think this is a very subtle move by Oda. We all read that part of the chapter thinking Zoro was using coding that we see Luffy and Kaido using afterwards, but in reality, Zoro is using something even above that. And so this brings me to Luffy. What is Luffy's physical manifest, right? Again, you always have to go back to the foundation. It all stems from the thing that truly embodies Luffy's spirit. And I think we got a revelation to that in the previous chapter. The sun god, Nika, an individual that brings laughter and free the slaves from their suffering. And in essence, this is an individual that gives people their freedom. And this has been Luffy's whole thing since the beginning of the story. In every arc, there's always some deep darkness in which people are suffering from. But Luffy comes along, beats the bad guy, and frees them from their source of pain, in essence giving them freedom from the thing that was tying them down. And it is currently taking place in Wano right now. Luffy is going to do the same thing in this arc. Who's Who is basically setting up Luffy's next power-up. And I've been saying this for weeks. I don't think the lore that we're getting here should be only taken in a metaphorical sense, but also literally. Luffy might literally become a sun god. So just like Zoro, Luffy will have a physical manifestation of some sort of sun god that will have fire related abilities. Now why fire abilities specifically? Well, it is because of a skill set that Luffy has, and that skill set is Red Hawk, a move that we didn't really know how it came to fruition, but it's starting to make sense now, in which this could have been the beginning of Luffy manifesting his conquerors. Red Hawk seemingly started out as a tribute to Ace, but its meaning might be a lot deeper now, as it might be connected to the sun god. So I imagine that Luffy's next form will revolve around fire. Something interesting that I do want to mention in relation to the sun god is Blackbeard. Blackbeard has a devil fruit that is literally darkness itself, and I personally think that this will be Blackbeard's greatest advantage over Luffy, because there is no way to deal with that fruit. Other devil fruits would just get absorbed, and Haki wouldn't work either. But with this reveal of Luffy obtaining this power that is related to the sun, I could see it being a counter to Blackbeard's darkness fruit, in which it would be able to blow the darkness away, and that's how Luffy can somewhat get around that. And it would be very symbolic because it kind of ties into the overall theme of the story and how Luffy is essentially a hero throughout the course of the story, right? About how Luffy saves people from darkness. And I also think about the Ace and Blackbeard scene, in which we sort of see the sun versus the darkness. I think that could be a scene where we're gonna look back on and say, wow, like the foreshadowing, right? But instead of darkness taking over, the sun actually overwhelms the darkness this time around, because I feel like something like that is gonna happen with Blackbeard and Luffy again, in which they're gonna have their own moment in which Luffy is gonna have this sun attack and Blackbeard using like some sort of dark hole with the darkness fruit. Now before I end the video, I briefly want to mention Shanks here. When it comes to Shanks, I believe that Shanks's manifestation will be based on Norse mythology, because that seems to be the theme of his crew, because his ship is like based on the Norse Viking ship, if I remember correctly, the Red Force. And his manifestation might be Tyr or maybe some of the other Norse gods, but based on mythology, Shanks shares a lot of similarities to Tyr, so I'm more so betting on that being his manifestation. So long story short, Advanced Conqueror's Haki is the physical manifestation of the user's spirit. But that's pretty much it for this video, guys. Comment down below what you guys think. I'd appreciate it if you dropped a like on this video and subscribe for more One Piece content. You can follow me on Twitter at Ferrispace. Bye, this Ferrer, guys, and I will see you folks later. Peace.